This is finding solid ground in AI. And first, I would like you, if you could raise your hand if you'd like to build a product or a feature that is totally useless. No one? Okay. So let me rephrase the question a bit. Please raise your hand if you'd like to build a product or a feature that is totally useless, but with AI and agents. No one again? Okay. So we know where we don't want to go, and now it's time to invest and take a look how to navigate to our destination. And we'll do it by creating a map, because every single journey, it starts with a map, and even if the map changes, you want to have a map to just walk along it. And to make it, we'll use a sample. So we'll assume that we are a company that has this mission that we want to democratize medical services. We'll try to do it so that folks can actually connect to MDs, and these MDs can diagnose patients and help with the lab results. And then at the very bottom, we want to mention that sometimes we will use these lab tracks. So we will traverse UK and we'll find places where there is not that much of the mobile signal, and we need to take that into consideration. So this is our story. And as usual, we'll start with a user. So this is a person, they say, I'm a doctor, and they want to help their patient. Now, this is not a quite specific need. So now let's take a look what is more specific about it. First, this person, they want to review large medical images. You know, the scans and all that medical stuff that I'm not aware of. Second, they want to be able to search for a particular kind of image. So, for example, they want to search for an image of a knee or an ankle or whatever. And the last but not least, the amount of data, this is quite a lot. So they want to get some help in the search. Now, every single need, we can drill it even further down and ask what is needed to support it, what is needed to build it into our application. So, for example, reviewing large medical images, that will be storing gigabytes of data and retrieving them, of course, in a very, very efficient way. If we are looking at the being able to search for a particular kind of an image, we need to understand the content of images to provide for that search. The last, this is a bit more complex one. So if you want to be able to help with searching across different documents, you want to have two things. One, this is the chat capability, right? This MD, they want to write something and get the answer. And the second, and as we are into health, this is quite important one. You don't want to access data of other folks, right? You want your queries to be really bound to the context that you use to start the conversation. Now, this thing can be drilled down further and further, and this font will get smaller and smaller. But you can see where we are going. We are like at the top, we have the user, and then we drill down on their needs and try to understand what is needed for these needs and the further and further requirements. Now on the left, you can see that an axis has appeared. Clearly, things at the bottom, they are not that visible, and we should not care about them that much. Things at the top, close to our user, we want to understand them, and they are much more visible to us and to our user. Now we may add more things to the same map, because as you are seeing, we are constructing a map for our travel. We can add another user, and this will be the IT person. So they want to make a mobile app, and that mobile app needs to work offline. So we are thinking edge. And we need to support that, we need to solve the data replication or find some solution for it. Now, that was one axis. But then we can go, OK, what goes with the x-axis, the horizontal one? Every single thing evolves. And at the very beginning, there will be a genesis phase where we'll have an idea or someone will have it. Then it will be custom built. Things will mature just a bit. Later, they will become a product, something that you can buy off the shelf. And at the end, they will become a commodity, meaning electricity, if you are not, of course, into the electricity producing business. Now we can combine these two axes, and I hope you see where I'm going. So on Y, we'll see the value, something from invisible to visible. On X, we will see the evolution, something from genesis, custom build, through product, to finally a commodity. And now, as we were drawing this beautiful tree before, you can see that these circles can be placed in different places here. If you move this blue circle to the left, things that we built on our own, you can see that it has two dependencies. I think it's orange, but I'm bad with colors, sorry. And then there is the yellow one. And the yellow one, it depends even further on something that is a commodity. So in that case, this is the electricity that you can just buy. Now, as we are constructing this map, we can go back to our original application and try to navigate and orient ourselves here. We are building this Ask for AI help thing. If we think about chat capability, I would say that nowadays, this is almost a product, or almost always a product. You just buy something, and then it has two dependencies. So this will be first it will be the conversation management. You need to keep the conversations, you need to keep the history, and then on the right, you can see that we need to have the large language models, right? Unless you want to build it on your own. Usually, you just buy it from OpenAI or some other provider. The question is whether this will be a commodity. And I had a really long debate with a friend of mine. We were arguing for, I think, hours. I'm leaving this up to you, whether you think that we'll buy LLMs like we buy electricity today. But then we need to enter with one more thing. The thing that I mentioned, this is health-related data. So you want your data to be secured, meaning the queries should be bounded properly so that they don't reach to other folks. And we need to have this isolation so that we have no jailbreaks at all. Now let's take a look at another path that we traverse, large images. So we have large images. They need to be stored and retrieved, of course. But after all, are you willing to build like the next S3? I mean, unless you're Cloudflare with R2, maybe, but this is a commodity. You just buy it. Whether it's Azure storage, whether it's S3, you will just buy this as a commodity. And then the last one, so this is the data on the edge. We want to have this possibility of gathering data and later on being with the synchronizing them properly. Of course, we maybe need to customize or do some filtering, but eventually what we want is that we want our truck to send the data over to our HQ. So we have a few maps here, right? We have a few pieces. Now we may ask the question how we might evolve this map. Oh, and by the way, how to find a S3 replacement. I hope it's clear that by now, it's just the commodity. You don't replace commodity. You just buy it in large quantities. So the first thing that we can observe is the movement. It's not a static map. Things move here, and they moved from left to right, and they move it on its own. We can either wait and anticipate, basically waiting till we can buy a product that supports something with, that supports us with this particular thing. Or we can actively search on the market for a product that already provides that capability. So this is one observation, the movement. Things move, and they move towards being commodities. Then there is the gluing. And the gluing, basically, it's the lines that connect all the pieces. And you may say, oh, this is for free. This is, we can work, we can spend time and money on it. But eventually, the total TCO, it can hurt your company. So if you can think of something that can replace this large piece, and basically, if you could put a label that replaces a few things that are glued together, maybe it could be cheaper for your company to find such a piece. Now, having that in mind, meaning the movement and the gluing and how we want to orient ourselves on the map, let's revisit this ask for AI help. As you can see, we have two things here, conversations and LLMs, and the chat capability. So as I was searching for it, I found this thing, RavenDB. And this is quite a big logo, not to promote the database, but actually to show how many functionalities it can cover. So in that case, the conversation management and the majority of the chat things is delegated to RavenDB. Of course, you may ask, oh, what about the LLM? And this is, again, the same conversation. Do you want to build your own model, or do you want to buy and pay per token or whatever you pay it, however you pay it? The next thing is that the thing at the top, once the chat capability and the conversation is resolved, it can be, your developers can use like Copilot, Codex, Claude, whatever, and that could be just a thin layer on top of the underlying capability provided by Raven, so that your application provides this nice UI, the connectivity, but you delegate a lot to the existing product. And then, of course, as we mentioned, no money, time, experience to build the LLM. You just buy it, unless you build one and this is your product, right? The next thing is the movement. And we were discussing this as the data on the edge. So first, there is the requirement for our mobile laboratories to store the data and later on to sync on to this HQ. We can anticipate the movement and wait till it happens, or we can actually try to find something. And again, the logo is as big as it to cover everything that it supports. So in regards to the living on the edge with RavenDB, you have the, first it has the embedded capability. So if you run on a really small device, you can have it. And then it has this hub sync replication. So we have the replication solved for us. Then at the top, as you can see, this purple circle, it can be like really trimmed down. If you have a database that can synchronize data for you, that can replicate data for you between the edge device and the HQ stuff, whenever the connectivity is online, then the purple shrinks just to some configuration only. And to know and to understand the things, I would like to state three things and that they will stick to your mind. First is the map the terrain. I think whenever you work on something, you need to understand what creates the value versus what supports it. Again, we were seeing at the top a few real dots that were supported by additional requirements. Next, you need to be observant and you need to notice the movement. Components naturally evolve. It's quite often buy versus build, and you may anticipate the movement, but you can also search for a product that matches your expectation. And the last but not least, select the tool. So use a mature product to reduce the gluing, as we mentioned, and absorb the change that is underneath. This is everything that I had for you. If you think that this is interesting, please stop by at RavenDB booth and let's continue this conversation. Thank you.
Amazing presentation. Thank you so much. OK, does anyone have questions for Szymon? No questions? All right, I have some questions. So my first one is actually what inspired you to work on this and create this? I think this is an issue a lot of us see and work on. It's also something that I think a lot of people feel is black boxed. So was there a specific issue or a specific company or a specific product that you saw where you were like, this is the solution we need right now?
Oh, if you're asking about the mapping tool itself, so the mapping tool comes from Szymon Wardley. He's like a really great strategist in regards to orienting ourselves and understanding the whole ecosystem. So this was just, I would say, just appliance of his wisdom, if I may say so. But the overall, the being observant, seeing how pieces are moved on the landscape, seeing what things you can replace with existing tools so that you don't bother with recreating stuff. This is something that is always close to me, to not reinvent the wheel that much and too often.
That makes a lot of sense. Relatedly, is there a really great success story you can share with all of us about how this tool cut out a lot of effort and heartache and complex data analytics that we're able to just kind of cut to the end for either a client or even yourself?
Oh yeah, I mean, I think you're asking about Raven itself, right? So if this is the question, one thing, I mean, I mentioned two of them. First is the AI capabilities, which is the AI that is actually run and embedded in the database, so it's really close to the data. This is what amazes me. And the second, I mentioned the edge and the replication stuff. I mean, once you have the replication stuff solved, the edge is like usually not much of a problem, if I may say so. So that would be another angle.
That's awesome. My last question then, and then I think everyone's going to get to go over for lunch. I would love to know a little bit more about your background and what brought you here and like how you achieved all this. I feel like that is something that I missed out a little bit.
So my background is software engineering, but I hope I fooled you that I'm doing the strategist way or work. And I hope that you learned a bit about how to approach the landscape, the ever-changing landscape of like software engineering and AI in general.
You definitely did, and that is an incredible background, very relevant, I think, for everyone today. Thank you all so much for coming to this amazing talk. Another round of applause for Szymon, please.
Thank you very much.